skills.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Counteract Podcast. My name is Allison Lind. I am the host of the Thursday People in NYC segment, and today I'm coming to you with part 2 of my Olympic reaction video. I'm just going to jump straight into the content. I'm aware that we're late to the game on these videos because the Olympics, I believe, are officially over as of like multiple days ago. But last week was a hard editing week for me. I was doing some traveling. These kinds of videos are kind of hard to churn out. And so here we are releasing both of them in 2 parts, 2 days in a row this week. So if you haven't watched my part 1 episode reacting to different Olympic events and memes, go check that out before watching this one. Although really today we're just focusing on Raygun. Who is she? Where did she come from? What does this mean for the Olympics and future alternative urban sports in the Olympics? We'll find out about all of that today in this episode. First, I do have to tell you really quickly about our amazing sponsors, Patriot Mobile. If you're looking for a Christian conservative wireless provider, you should switch to Patriot Mobile because they are the only one in the country that support Christian conservative values and still provide great service. They offer dependable nationwide coverage, which gives you access to all 3 major networks. And that means you get the same coverage you've been accustomed to, but you don't have to put money into causes you don't support. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you support the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, and our military veterans and first responder heroes. Their customer service team is 100% US based. They make switching super easy. You can keep your number, your phone, your upgrade, and their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. All you have to do is go to patriotmobile.com/counteract or call 972-PATRIOT. Once again, that is patriotmobile.com/counteract or call 972-PATRIOT, and you can get free activation when you use the code Counteract USA. Join us and make the switch today. All right, without further ado, let's hop into the dirty details of this episode. I'm coming to you guys with a parkour perspective as well, so hopefully I'm giving you new information you haven't really heard, new stuff to think about, behind-the-scenes drama that you didn't even know there was. I've got it all. All right, let's hop in. I saw a comment recently that was like, my 4-year-old in the toy aisle when I say no. Yeah. LOL. It's so awkward. First of all, there's people in the back that just look absolutely traumatized. But also you can just see her competitor just standing there like, huh. If I was in competition and I like was up against this, I don't know. Oh! Oh boy. It's the 0-0 for me. Wow. And she's so dramatic. She's theatrical with it, right? She ends it like, and I know she like walks in, she's like trying to get herself all hyped up, but it literally looks like she's like putting on the mask or like the appearance of being a breakdancer instead of actually just being a breakdancer.
Boom. Roasted.
So, okay. I have thoughts about this. You know, everyone is coming at her and at the Olympics and really just the woke mob in general saying this is a direct result of the woke mob of DEI-ism. So some background on her. Her name is Raygun. However, her breaker name is Raygun. She has a PhD in breakdancing. Are you kidding me? No! Maybe I was really spoiled to be able to learn hip hop and breaking and all of these like urban dance forms in New York City, which is like one of the cultural hubs, the origin places of these dance forms. So I was blessed with really good teachers, But even then, my school doesn't offer, and it's one of the top 10 dance schools in the country. They don't offer a freaking PhD, a major. They don't offer any of that in breakdancing. That's insane to me. And so I see why people are coming at them and saying, like, yeah, this is a result of, like, the woke mob. Like, this is just a white woman being selfish. And a big part of the controversy is that they have now decided, when they were entering the Olympics, they already talked about how they weren't sure if breakdancing had a standing. This was kind of a test run. And then after everything went down, they decided that breakdancing will not have a place in the next Olympics. A lot of people think it's Raygun's fault. And I wouldn't be surprised, although I haven't watched the rest of it. But if you look a little deeper into the process that the Olympics takes when adding sports into the programming, I guess, they don't know what they're doing. The perfect example of this is that they offloaded their management to another dance organization that specialized in ballroom. Obviously had no idea. Ballroom, you don't know anything about breakdancing. They didn't know what they were doing. So they decided the best way to approach it then would be to have local entities hold world qualifiers around the world to qualify for the Olympics. So, places like New York, the US, we probably have pretty competitive qualifiers. But somewhere like Australia, which is just like, I don't want to insult Australia because I have Australian friends, but it feels like the suburbs of America. Like Raygun I'm not surprised that she came from Australia and has a PhD in dance. It makes so much sense. It's very Australian. So, because they decided to split it up this way, first of all, the Olympics is supposed to be like this one world gathering, this one entity, like we're put up against the same standards. But because they transitioned it to local entities around the world, that means one, standards for qualifying vary depending on your country and your culture, but two, who the heck is going to be in charge of this? Have those entities been vetted? Do they run by the same standards? Are they well connected within the communities that created these sports? Apparently not, because Raygun herself and her husband own the entity that ran the Australian qualifiers. So why did she get into the Olympics? Power, nepotism, whatever you want to call it, connections. She was running it. I found that very interesting. I've heard a lot of cases, right? I've heard a lot of people in the circles that I run in, like I said, they blame it on the woke mob. They blame it on DEI hiring. They say that the Olympics is going downhill. We've lost our definition of excellence. And do I agree with this? Mostly yes. However, I'm also in an alternative urban sport. I do parkour. Parkour is a male-dominated sport. When I started training, was the only woman who consistently trained in the community. Just this past winter, we gained 2 new women, meaning we have 5 total that train now. One of them is not even from New York. She's here for a year. She's going back to the UK. So really 4 women based out of New York City that consistently train. And that only happened because I stuck around in my first year and I made friends and they joined in, and then we pushed it to be consistent. And so, like, I don't want to sound like, but like, I do believe to some extent that representation does matter. It's been a huge point of controversy in the parkour community for a long time, how we integrate women into competitions, because naturally in every sport, women are about 20 years behind the men, and parkour is only about 40 years old. I think the first competition was like freaking back in like early 2000s. So I don't even know if we're coming up on 20 years of competing. So obviously there's a huge gap between men and women. The standard for women is quite low right now. And that's not to say that the top women in the sport are not freaking beasts. Some of them do things that most men couldn't do. But it does go to show that there is a gap in ability for women and men. And because of that, and because most of the competitions are run by men, it's very hard for women to actually find fair competition in most of these events. Greatest example we have is Red Bull Art of Motion, which ran for many, many years. I don't know if it's still running. They haven't run since a couple years ago. And one of the big reasons why I speculate is because they chose not to have a women's division all of these years. They had consistently like the same number of women competing and still wouldn't have a women's division. So the women were up against the men. And it's a style competition, so women have different skill sets than men. Men are really powerful. They can do things that are more like rooted in gymnastics. Most of the women have a dance background, and so they do things that are more flowy and, by the judging scale, less difficult. However, I would argue there's a certain level of artistry that comes into style that women do better than men, and that it is really difficult for people to get. But because the scoring of that kind of stuff there is subjective, and they have to make it objective, basically the women go up against the men and they don't do as well. And yes, you have your top female podium at the end of the games, but they don't have a women's division. It's not women going up against women. And so a lot of people have argued that, like, yes, we need to fill the places and put women up against women if we want to improve the level within the sport that women hold. If you want to improve the standards, push us all up against each other. We don't get to train together often. The best women that I know are across the ocean. I see them once a year, maybe. And do I even get to train with them that much when I see them? No. Because that's just not the nature of the sport. Until we have the same amount of women training in a community as men, we will not see the standard rise. And all this to say, because on one side we hear like, this is embarrassing and this is the epitome of like the white liberal woman. But then on the other side, I hear women within parkour who say the same people that want women to compete more and to be represented more and encouraged to just train more in male-dominated fields are the same people that are trashing this woman for getting up on stage, being brave enough to represent her country. All of these things. So it's giving me a lot of mixed feelings, right? Because we want to support women in competition. At the same time, though, we have to figure out how to do it well. Knowing this information about Raygun, I don't think she should have made it to the Olympics. I actually do believe that there are tons and tons of women out there who are probably way more talented than her. I did watch her qualifying video from qualifiers, and I see the artistry there. She's much more lyrical, contemporary. I see it, but like, you have to respect the original culture of the sport that you're doing to some extent, especially when you're representing it on the world stage. Which brings me to my next point. The fact that the Olympics decided to offload their responsibility to just some random organization that does ballroom dancing. We have a similar issue in parkour right now as well. And this is why parkour hasn't been put into the Olympics yet, because people are fighting it probably a lot more than they did in breaking. So the Olympics is trying to get parkour to be a sport, and they're using this organization called FIG. If you know anything about gymnastics, you know that FIG runs gymnastics for the Olympics. So they use gymnastics scoring for all of their competitions, obviously, because it's gymnastics. But now they're trying to incorporate parkour as if parkour is just gymnastics outside. But it's not. We have to use much more natural and primal movement. There's other factors that come into it, like spot usage, efficiency, creativity, stees. It's just not as straightforward as they want to make it. And so they've started introducing these competitions that are like speed comps and all of this, and they're really just like not representing the sport well. And like, most people hate FIG because of that. Like, people watch it, they just like they watch the guy in the opening ceremony and they think, wow, that must be what parkour is, which is embarrassing to us. We know that some of the best athletes in the sport, the ones who may not ever do well in competition, are the ones who are out there doing location-based challenges that are risky, that are unbelievable, that are artistically crafted, and it doesn't fit into a competition setting because it's too subjective to be squished into some kind of objective grading scale, especially one that is familiar with gymnastics over the actual sport. I don't know if any of this makes sense, but I'm watching this happen with breakdancing and some of these other sports too, even like skateboarding. I feel weird about skateboarding because I watch most of those athletes in the qualifiers and like they're not the people I see on Thrasher or like the world's leading skate organizations or media outlets, because there's like, it's two separate sides of the sport. And I just feel like the Olympics is doing a really bad job for someone who claims to be loving and representative and promoting of all cultures around the world and inclusive. And we're just like, we're one big happy family. They're completely disregarding the roots of some of our most iconic sports today. I mean, breakdancing is on the worldwide stage. We know it. We know it's good. But we know it for its culture, right? And so to take it out of that context, throw it on a stage and put a PhD professor up there to do her little bunny hop, I think is just really disrespectful to the sport and the athletes who work their whole lives and honestly who now have lost their chance to be in the Olympics. I think we shouldn't rush to put these sports in the Olympics. We should take our time understanding them the same way that we have been since freaking 1890 with the world's oldest sports like swimming and running and shooting, apparently. We shouldn't rush to put these sports in because then we get results like Raygun. I think you should have to work hard for it. You should have to earn the honor of representing your country and being the best at your sport. Like, the Olympics used to be so grand, so excellent. They used to be the epitome of what the human race was capable of. And now, because of, I don't know if it's a money grab or trying to change their branding or maybe they really are trying to go with the woke mob. Whatever it is, they've lost sight of what the original mission was and in turn have completely disregarded sports that are all about the community and the culture. And they've put people who maybe didn't deserve to be on the world stage in front of an audience. And in Raygun's case, I do feel bad for her. She got ripped apart. But I just think about all the women who are breakers, are skateboarders, are in some of these types of like alternative sports who've busted their butts on the streets, right? Like literally on the streets, dealing with the male dominance aspect of the sport, dealing with the cultural stigma, all of these things that is just getting completely disregarded and washed down the drain by them trying to like make this commercial ideal picture of what it is. So I don't know if anything in this little rant of mine has made sense, but I think we should perhaps make space for women to compete, even if it isn't as good as the men. If the state of breaking really were where Raygun's skills lie, that would be one story. And I think I would be more inclined to say that, yes, she should be up there. But since breaking is not in that state, and there's actually, I know, tons of women around the world who are talented, who are hardworking, who love their community and work hard to represent their community, like that's what we should be representing. And if that is the case, then like this should not be allowed in the Olympics. I really just don't think it should. Same as parkour. I think that if we're truly representing the best of women in the sport, and it may not look that great to the outside eye, okay, that's fine, because at the end of the day, we're still pushing our abilities in our sport and our community. We're pushing female participation. But if they were to turn around and take a bunch of gymnasts and throw them in parkour, or like, I think there was one time where they did a fig competition and it was a bunch of, oh my gosh, no. Yes, it was USA Parkour Cup. They totally took a bunch of CrossFit and like basketball athletes and threw them in a parkour setting and we're like, here, go compete. Instead of actually reaching out to women around the community, it's a small community, so I know that they could find us, and saying, hey, come compete in our competition. It's just completely disregarding the actual people on the ground, the grassroots of the sport, and you're making a power grab at that point, and it's stupid, and I don't think that that's what the Olympics should represent. I don't think that is the pinnacle of human achievement. I think it's just power hungry people trying to save their reputations on the world stage. That's my rant with very little context of how the Olympics works and what their secret political ties are and all of that. But I just wanted to talk about that for a minute because I am part of an urban sport that struggles with this often. Women get hated on like this, like she did, very often. People say, that's not parkour. You look stupid. Like, you should quit now. And we have to deal with that every day. However, we push through it because we're pushing the sport and we're remaining true to the heart of like why we train. And so if Raygun is doing that, I can support her. Although I can also lovingly say I don't think the Olympics is for her yet. So that's my like rant to you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it though. Some silly videos in the beginning and then some serious talk at the end. Let me know what you guys think of all of this. What are your opinions about the Olympics this year? Let us know in the comments of this video. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast and share it with a friend if you can. And let us know what you want to hear more of. I typically do interviews on my segment, but I wanted to do this because it just kind of hits so close to home for me. Please let us know if there's anyone you want to come on the podcast to interview. Yeah, all of that fun stuff. Okay, this video is really long, so I'm just going to end it now. Love you guys so much. See you next week. Bye!